Okay, so we are live now. I'm here with the wonderful Lyn Ulbricht. We are in Manchester at the Liberty Forum here, which has been a fantastic event so far. And of course, Lyn Ulbricht is here. She is at all of these events promoting justice, especially in the court system, promoting the release of non-violent offenders, and specifically promoting the case that is the Silk Road case, where her son, Russ Ulbricht, just had the most disgusting trial and sentencing, and it was such a miscarriage of justice. So thank you so much for chatting with me, Lyn, and for providing this update on everything that's going on.
Always love to talk to you, Naomi.
So, yeah, where are we now? I mean, last I heard, I read on Twitter, I think yesterday, that Ross has been moved to a new prison now, which seems like it's great news. That's great news. So just give us a rundown of where we are currently.
Sure. Ross, being the very peaceful, nonviolent person that he is, refused to assault another inmate when he was called upon to do that. Sometimes that happens in prison where other inmates will say, you got to beat this guy up for being a snitch or whatever. And Ross said, no, I'm not going to beat some guy up. That's not who I am. I don't believe in that. And so that made him a target. And so he had to put himself in protective custody, and which meant he was literally in a 10 by 8 metal box with no window looking out or anything like that. Barely got outside maybe 4 times into another cage for 3.5 months. And while I investigated, was there a real threat? It was determined there was, and ultimately we went through a lot of things, but ultimately he was sent to USP Tucson, which is a place where they do send people who have been targeted to keep them safe. So I'm very happy about it. Ross says it's much safer, more relaxed. There's not a violence there. And he's had to deal with, he's a nonviolent guy. His security score is 10, which would put him into a camp with no fences if it weren't for this draconian sentence this judge gave him, which automatically puts him into a maximum security prison with violent gangs and some of the most dangerous criminals in the system, just because of the sentence. And so he doesn't belong there. The guards even would say to me, he shouldn't be in here. Why?
He shouldn't be behind bars, Lyn.
Actually, one of them said, hey, did you see the pardon Trump did? You need to get to Trump. This is a guard in the prison because he knows Ross. In any case, yes, it's been a relief, and Ross is a lot more relaxed. He says he's kind of coming down off of having to be aware all the time of, it's a very intense situation, but he's very happy to be there. We're happy he's there. Yeah.
So I want to check the sound, but while I'm checking the sound, I did want to ask you. So I mean, the sound all looks good. No one's mentioned anything. The reason why Catherine Forrest actually gave Ross the sentencing, the crazy sentencing, harsh sentencing that she did, and I was there at the sentencing, listening to this, just like gobsmacked. She was bringing up charges that Ross was never actually charged with, and that have since been all dismissed with prejudice. And this is since the last time I chatted with you, so I do want to talk about that as well. But she basically said that, this person who, citing all these things that were never even taken to court, in the sentencing for something completely different, for that, number one, was crazy to me. And number two, when she was saying that you are a danger for your political beliefs. That's what really shocked me. And I was like, how is this trial not being shut down right now, where she's literally citing his beliefs, this, anti-government overreach stance, and saying that he is a danger to society and needs to be locked away. So that is what led to him being in this maximum security prison with people who are actually dangerous people, whereas Ross is an incredibly peaceful, non-violent person. So
you've met Russ, you know him to an extent, and
he just exudes peace, and
But let me say, you touched on two of the most important points in the whole sentencing and the whole situation. One is the judge violated the Sixth Amendment by right to a jury trial by bringing in uncharged allegations that were never proven or ruled on by a jury. He was never convicted of it. The Sixth Amendment was written to protect the accused from such judges, because we're supposed to be judged by a jury of 12 of our peers. Not one judge who, on their own, decides that, oh, the prosecutor is right and I'm going to put this person away for life because I think it's right. The jury never had a chance to rule on it at all. It was never proven, and as you say, it was never charged at trial, and then later it was completely dropped from everything. So it's gone. And yet it remains as part of the justification for this draconian sentence. And this is really wrong. And it's being done in our system. I didn't know this, but apparently it's being done. It's been done for decades. In fact, Justice Scalia spoke out against this violation in other cases. He said this has gone on long enough. We have a Sixth Amendment. These judges, should not be allowed to do this. The other thing you touched on is being punished for your philosophy, your political beliefs. She said, we know that you started this site for philosophical reasons, which is true. And I'm just not sure that's a philosophy you've left behind.
And she mentioned Ross's letter where he said, I'm so sorry if there's anything that, I'd done. It was this beautiful, heartfelt letter. And she said, I just don't believe it. I don't think that you've left this philosophy behind. And it's like, wait, so you're charging him for a philosophy now? Is that what this is about?
We have a First Amendment in the United States, which is that, and part of it is you cannot be sentenced based on your creed, your philosophy. It's freedom of speech, and she admits it in writing, in the transcript, on the record, okay? And so anyone who has a philosophy of voluntary interaction, free markets, and so forth should take note, because this is partly, and a great deal part of it, why Ross is in a cage, and unless we can get him out for the rest of his life.
And it was started for philosophical reasons. The idea was to have, the first instance of a truly free market, unfettered by overreach and draconian laws, and what would happen if we had a free society? Let's have this experiment. And I think personally, that's a beautiful philosophy. But it's something that a lot of libertarians resonate with. It's a lot of libertarians would look at that and say, yes. I believe in freedom and individual responsibility and making your own choices. As long as you don't hurt other people, and as long as you don't take their stuff, as long as there's not fraud there, then you should be fine. And that's literally what Silk Road said on the site. You couldn't have any substances that hurt others, that were illegal, all of that. I mean, that were
intended for harm, no child pornography, no stolen property, all of that kind of thing. Anything that created a victim. And they considered drugs a choice. That can be argued, but that was, it was a choice. And it was mostly, by the way, overwhelmingly user amounts of cannabis. Overwhelmingly.
Oh, cannabis, that deadly substance. Oh, I'm so glad that non-violent people are being locked away behind bars and paid for with taxpayer money to get those crazy pot smokers off the street. I mean, it's just crazy. But the point of bringing this up is that a lot of libertarians resonate with this message. And it's no coincidence that the first thing right out the gate that gets said about Ross is, oh, he's a murderer. Because you can imagine the number of libertarians that dropped him. As soon as, the media started propagating that, this wasn't brought up, in court, as a charge or anything like that. This was brought up by the media incessantly, though. And you know what is brought up by every person when I tweet about this case and I say, support Lyn Ulbricht, I'll generally have 99 people saying, free Russ, this is terrible, what a miscarriage of justice. And I'll have one asshole who's like, didn't you kill someone? And it's these people, I mean, I shouldn't call them assholes actually, because it's the media that are the assholes. These are people who are just digesting what the media is putting out there. And I do it all the time. I will read something and I'll think, this is probably true because the media says it. But the fact is that this was a character assassination right out the gate that led so many libertarians to just drop him right off the bat. And that is what's so devastating. The amount of groundswell that would have been around Russ had the media not have been propagating these lies lies, it would have been crazy. So I really don't hate any of the people who have been misled by this, because we've all been misled by media. But we need to be smarter than that. And we need to, if we're someone who does know the truth, if we do actually know the facts of the trial, the facts of the case, be actually spreading awareness about this, because it's such an important issue, and I hate to see these lies perpetuated.
Well, first of all, after all this, I don't believe what I read in the media. Very rarely. Well, I
You and me both.
I'm like, maybe not. But absolutely. And I ask people, so what do we have trials for? Well, just have a media lynching and get it over with, no problem. And it's the government feeding the media, and the media getting the clickbait, the sensationalistic, hey, what's more exciting to read about? Good boy gone bad, murder for hire, or, an idealistic libertarian who was doing an economic experiment that got out of hand and didn't mean any harm. And, it's like, well, wow, which would, you want to click and find out. And this has been going on. I mean, honestly, this is one of the main things I've been fighting for 5 years.
You're so incredible, Lyn. I mean, you pushed yourself recently. A Breaker magazine put out an interview with you, which I really enjoyed. But just they were talking about you personally and your involvement in this. I mean, you're someone who was not politically active prior to this, and just after all of this happened and it personally touched your life, and you've just learned so much about what's going on in the justice system. You've been an advocate fighting for other people. You've been spreading awareness about issues and miscarriages of justice going on in the court system that are affecting all of us, that we need to be knowing. You're such a crusader. You've pushed yourself past beyond the brink of your health, and you're just such an incredible person. And we're all part of the Liberty Movement. We're all so lucky to have you fighting for this cause.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it's been quite a fight, but you know what? Once you start going to prison and you meet the families and you see the children, especially, this is what gets to me. And these are not often nonviolent people. These are over 60% of prisoners are nonviolent, like Russ. And mostly drug offenders. The drug war is fueling this whole horror. And
there are a lot of people making a lot of money out of this.
A lot of money. They have a big investment in keeping this going. And these kids, they're so happy to see their dad, and then they get torn away. They're sobbing. They're shattered. The families are under incredible stress. And so I have to fight. It's like I when I get Ross out, I'll still keep fighting for them, because this is wrong. This is evil. And it's really un-American. Before the drug war, there was a very steady around 180,000 prisoners. It's metastasized 800%. Life sentences have quintupled. There's over 17,000, according to the Sentencing Project, nonviolent people like Ross serving life sentences for nonviolence. This was never true when I was growing up. This is not what our country is supposed to be, and I feel like it's being hijacked by really totalitarian methods that are decimating our justice system and making trials a joke. I mean, 98% of people now are pressured by prosecutors to plea, or they're threatened. And they mostly do because they know that they're going to lose a trial. This is not what our founders intended. And it hurts us all. You can say, oh, well, drugs. It's like, no, it percolates down to all of us.
And so you currently have a petition out at the moment. I think it's at 130,000 signatures right now.
It's pushing 133,000. It's almost 133 today.
Is awesome. So if you haven't signed the petition, this is so important. As Lyn mentioned, there are even people, the guards mentioning, the pardons that Trump is doing at the moment. So President does have a lot of power. Whoever is in office does have a lot of power. And currently Trump does have the ability to pardon non-violent criminals, and he has been doing that. He has a precedent of doing that. So if we can get as much exposure about this case, if we can spread the word, I'm going to put the link below in the information, but basically if you go to change.org and type in Russ Ulbricht, you will find this, but I will post a link below. And if you can sign that, if you can send it to your mother, if you can send it to your brother and your best friend, just get people to sign this, because this is so important. We're aiming for 500,000 signatures in order to, make a splash and get the president's attention, because Russ should not be behind bars, and especially not for 2 life sentences plus 40 years, when the largest drug dealer on Silk Road got like 10 years.
And he has the same offense score as Ross. It's a political case, really. And I just want to say, you can also go to freeross.org. There's a big red banner. Click it. You're there. Look, even if you think he's a bad guy, even if you think Silk Road is a horrible thing, there's an argument for that. Just look at the sentence. This is a nonviolent first-time offender, double life plus 40 years. He was 26 years old when he created Silk Road with an ideal in mind. He's matured.
And it wasn't even him running it by the end of it. That's another thing that was not brought up. But it's a huge issue. But you can reach out, and if you wanted to reach Russ directly, there are lots of ways you can do that. freeross.org is a great place. bitbacker.io is helping out the case as well. If you wanted to send a message to Russ, you can go to Bitbacker. You can type in your message along with the donation, because this case is expensive. It's ongoing. This fight is ongoing. So any support that you can send, it would be amazing. I know that a lot of people have been showing you a lot of support on Bitbacker. They've been sending messages directly to Russ. So if you wanted to send him a message, go through there, and that will all be passed along so that he can read the message along with donations.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you, Naomi. You've been in here walking with us since the beginning. You were at sentencing, and you were there at trial for part of it too.
Therefore, just after the trial and the sentence.
Right, and just have been so supportive and had that fundraiser, and have just been such a great voice for and took part in our other fundraiser. And I just really thank you. And it's been people like Naomi and others that have stepped up and stuck with us for, this is a long haul. And it's made it possible. It really has. So thank you.
It's an important cause. So I'm going to put that link below, but thank you so much, Lyn. Please send my love to Russ and give him a big hug from me.
He really liked you a lot, yeah. What's not to like? But,
But yeah, and if you have a message, pass it along. But best of luck with everything. And I'm getting you. I just hope that everything works out. We will.